Fans around the world have been fascinated by Charles Bronson's toughness on screen for years. But was it all an act? The Hollywood legend buried a tangled web of insecurities, obsessions, and paradoxes beneath his intimidating physique and chiseled exterior. His daughter Zuleika Bronson has broken her father's silence and revealed disturbing details of his life that have long been shrouded in mystery. When the tough guy image of a famous actor crumbles, what happens next? What lies beneath the icy stare of film legend Charles Bronson? Let's dive in and find out. And do you know the legend of Charles Bronson? Lend more time in the comments if you do. Childhood spent in the mines. A lot of people didn't know much about Charles Bronson's childhood until Zuleika Bronson, his daughter, publicly spoke about it. She spilled the beans on an astonishing fact about the life of the famous actor. Many people find it hard to believe that Charles Bronson had a troubled childhood, characterized by poverty, abandonment, and trauma, given his tough guy image on television. But it was just verified by his daughter. Born into a Roman Catholic family of Lithuanian origin, Charles Dennis Bukinski was the 11th child of 15 siblings in Ehrenfeld, Pennsylvania. Aside from their enormous size, the family was marked by severe poverty, making it extremely challenging for the children to grow up without necessities. Sharing a cramped, rudimentary house with few conveniences, including no running water, was their pitiful living condition. Even worse, because of the cramping and agony, they had to take turns sleeping. Because he did not have access to the same fundamental necessities as his peers, Charles Bronson's upbringing was akin to a punishment. Immigrants from Lithuania, Walter and Mary Bukinski, worked long hours to support their families. They relied on government aid for the most part since, despite their best efforts, nothing changed. He endured shame and mockery from his classmates whenever he wore his sister's old clothing to school since his family couldn't afford to buy him a proper uniform. They shared the socks they had, as they couldn't afford to buy new ones. Charles had to learn to be independent at an early age because his parents were often gone. Even at a young age, he was subjected to both neglect and cruelty. Multiple traumatic events, such as experiencing or watching domestic violence, occurred as a result of the absence of supervision and assistance. His mental health took a major hit because he saw his father's physical and emotional abuse of his mother and siblings daily. However, he was also not excluded. His terrible upbringing was made much worse by his inability to comprehend his father's contempt for him. His father's frequent physical abuse and verbal abuse left him with lasting psychological wounds. He hid and ran away from his father every time he came home, afraid that he would beat and humiliate him. As a result of the emotional toll that these traumatic events took on Charles, he began smoking at the tender age of 9. Despite his best efforts, he was unable to kick the habit, and this ultimately led to his downfall. As a child, Charles felt helpless, as he saw a web of violence and anarchy engulf him from an early age. Zuleika Bronson, his daughter, claims that her father's relationships and actions were marked by the impact of these terrible events. She went into detail on how Charles Bronson's childhood trauma of neglect and abuse made him ill-equipped to form close relationships. A lot of people probably didn't get it, since they had no idea what was driving his actions until this unexpected disclosure. Everything seemed to fall apart when, at the age of 10, his father passed away. To help support his family, Charles Bronson had to go back to work at the mine site his father had worked at before, alongside his siblings. He didn't return to school until much later in life, and that was the end of his formal education. When he was a kid, he got a job at the mining office. But when he became older, he had to move underground. He had to volunteer for tough work since the compensation was greater, but he was only paid $1 per ton of coal, which was hardly anything. During his adolescence, he toiled away in the mine for pitiful wages that barely covered their food costs, while his friends didn't have to work nearly as hard. The truth that Zuleika has revealed about her father's life sheds light on the complex man behind the famous actor. Anyone wondering how Charles Bronson's terrible and difficult upbringing shaped his military service and his career is understandably curious. How would you rate it? Was he unable to overcome the effects of his troubled childhood in his marriage and parenting? Can you tell me what he accomplished and what made him successful? We'll have to see. Military service experience. Zuleika Bronson, Charles Bronson's daughter, has lately revealed a stunning revelation regarding her father's military service, which adds further mystery to his troubled upbringing. Even though Bronson served in the military, nobody knew what he went through. Charles Bronson joined the U.S. Army Air Forces in 1943 when the war was still ongoing, a major turning point in his life and outlook. This was no ordinary occurrence. Seeing that he could now eat decent meals without having to go back to the mines made him very happy. But was this the case? Although he was born and raised speaking Lithuanian, he was able to pick up English throughout his service in the military. Many were surprised that a man of his age couldn't speak English, but his upbringing ensured that it was never his fault. He joined the Guam-based 39th Bombardment Group in 1945 and served as a crewman on a superfortress. On 25 flights, he was to fly with a B-29 bomber. Whenever it was time to fly or go to combat, he would frequently feel worried, despite his enthusiasm and devotion to his vocation. Still, he never even considered turning around because of that. He was posthumously awarded the Purple Heart for wounds sustained in the line of duty in 1946 for his resiliency and fortitude. Charles, in contrast to several of his co-workers, eagerly anticipated returning to fight. His motives for cherishing each moment remain a mystery to everyone around him. He battled not for admiration but for independence, setting himself apart from the rest. He was only a regular soldier, yet he put his nation's demands ahead of his own and fought fiercely regardless of the cost. Claims started popping up because nobody could make sense of Charles's military background. He wasn't flying in the skies, they argued. He was just driving on roadways. His military background was a front. Those who knew him well, however, spoke up courageously in defense of his honor amid all these accusations. Public apologies for undermining his credibility were extended after the facts came to light. According to his daughter, her father's unfaltering desire to save mankind stems from his traumatic upbringing. No one should have to go through what he did as a child, so he did everything he could to make sure that others didn't have to, within his limits, of course. Additionally, she mentioned that her father's wartime experiences shaped him into a staunch defender of the United States military and an outspoken opponent of communism. His legendary tough guy character in movies owes a great deal to this as well. According to her, he portrayed tough, stoic characters in films like The Great Escape and The Magnificent Seven because of the discipline, perseverance, and camaraderie he gained while serving in the military. Being the first in his family to complete high school, Charles overcame the obstacle of illiteracy. But when the war was declared over, a chapter in his life's narrative came to a close, and he said goodbye to the military in 1949. But his experiences had a beneficial impact on every part of his life after that, and his sacrifices and humanitarian work were remembered for generations. After that, Charles took advantage of the GI Bill, which used to be a federal effort to provide financial and social benefits to World War II veterans after they returned home. With this, he enrolled in art classes to gain artistic knowledge and forge ahead in life. This was a significant part of his life that remained unknown for decades. However, it contributed to his great success and stardom. After World War II, Charles Bronson still had to venture into different jobs to keep himself busy. He went back to the coal mines where he worked during his childhood and picked up other minor jobs alongside. One may see him cleaning cars today. In the blink of an eye, he would start placing bricks at various locations. To supplement his income, he worked as a driver and did odd jobs here and there. He took a chance on painting sets for a Philadelphia theater company, where he had the chance to hone his skills. His acting profession emerged as a result of these many encounters. It is quite remarkable how many people were unaware of Charles Bronson's acting career until after he passed away, even though a great deal happened in his life before his acting career. Many people didn't realize the major events that molded him into the harsh on-screen character. Thus, it is widely believed that his chances in the entertainment sector came about through fortuitous meetings. His early acting career and subsequent success in Hollywood beg the question, how did he get into Hollywood? Let us continue to find. Early acting career and success in Hollywood. Charles Bronson dabbled in Hollywood acting after working as a scenic painter in Philadelphia. He never intended to pursue acting or even consider a career in show business. Therefore, this was never in his plans. So, what prompted him to pursue acting professionally? Why was he after fame? He, like everyone else, was looking for a way to live, a way to get the money he needed to pay the bills. Bronson had the opportunity to stay in New York City with Jack Klugman in the late 1940s when his military service finished. Both were acting hopefuls at the moment, but they were having trouble breaking into the industry. Despite the cramped quarters, they were able to meet their most fundamental demands. Bronson was very tidy and skilled at ironing clothing, and they had a close relationship and helped one another out despite the difficult circumstances. When it came to encouraging them to take action, the strength of their bond was very essential. Charles Bronson was secretly entering into a marriage with Harriet Tendler at the same time as his daughter revealed the affair. However, their marriage did not last very long. Please continue reading to learn more about the specifics of his marriage. During his earlier years, he followed a buddy into the world of film production. He never in his wildest dreams would have anticipated that he would achieve such a high degree of accomplishment in the acting industry. Even though he was an actor at the time, he realized that he might attain success through hard work and determination. There was nothing he stood to lose if he was unsuccessful, but he stood to gain a great deal if he was successful. That was what set him on the path. To enhance his acting skills, he decided to enroll in acting school and get training at the Pasadena Playhouse. This decision was influenced by his connection with Jack Klugman. All of these events took place throughout the 5 years that spanned from 1946 to 1951, before he began his career as a film actor. Despite this, he was confronted with several challenges regarding the process of acquiring genuine parts. Because he was frequently placed in little roles that would not even bring him to the attention of the public, he had a difficult time breaking into the film business. Over the years, 1951 and 1952, he had supporting appearances in a few films, including Bloodhounds of Broadway and The People Against O'Hara, among others. He played the role of Igor in the Vincent Price film House of Wax, which was released in 1953. His versatility was on full show in this performance, which helped pave the way for him to participate in more significant roles in the films Apache and Drumbeat, both of which were released in 1954. His companion persuaded him to change his name from Charles Bukinski to Charles Bronson in the same year. He did this because he was concerned that if he continued to use his Russian surname, he would not be able to get very far in the entertainment world. He needed a name that was memorable and would initially attract the attention of people. Therefore, he took this piece of advice to heart and decided to change his surname to Bronson. Because of this, he is commonly referred to as Charles Bronson in modern times. Even though he had a hard time finding a job, he was able to grin with this small amount of accomplishment since he continued to face rejections and financial difficulties. Despite this, Charles Bronson, who is known for being a tough individual, did not give up on his dream of pursuing a career in acting. It was as if he saw a fish in the river and wasn't willing to leave until he caught it. According to Zuleika, her father honed his craft, studying, acting, and learning from his peers, ultimately landing his breakthrough. His perseverance eventually paid off. In the early 1960s, he played one of 7 gunfighters taking up the cause of the defenseless in The Magnificent Seven, directed by John Sturge. His role in that film earned him a lot of cash. Though it was a domestic film, it became a blockbuster in Europe, making a huge profit. His meteoric climb to fame started then. Along with John Sturge, he appeared in 1963's The Great Escape, which portrayed prisoners of captivity during World Captivity II. Many critics and fans hailed the picture as a masterpiece of action cinema and gave it rave reviews. At the time, this one picture made $11.7 million. As time went on, it met the requirements to get a Golden Globe Award nomination for Best Picture. It went on to become 1963's highest-grossing picture. The more films Charles Bronson appeared in, the more famous he became, and the more money he made from them. He had breakthroughs and triumphs in both Europe and the US as a result of his various film roles. Rider on the Rain, a French thriller directed by René Clément and released in 1970, had him as the lead. For Starbucks, this was a huge hit in both the US and France. Wanda Whale of the Daily News gave the picture 4 stars and praised Bronson, stating he is fantastic as the stern colonel. The film went on to win a Golden Globe for Best Foreign Language Film. A report that Bronson was being considered to feature in the 1973 film Papillon first surfaced in June 1970. At long last, his close friend Steve McQueen was selected to play the part. When Bronson was 54 years old, he was cast in the most significant role he had ever played, which was in Michael Winner's film Death Wish. As a result of that movie, he became renowned. The role that he played was Paul Kersey, a New York architect who had previously been affluent but had transformed into a vigilante who fought against criminals. The sexual assault on his daughter and the death of his wife came after this event, which took place after other events. Bronson's acting skills and the film's captivating storyline led to the creation of 4 sequels to Death Wish, which were released over 20 years. Regrettably, a great number of critics were dissatisfied with the film because, as is their custom, they believed that it encouraged antisocial behavior and represented an immoral threat to society. The filmmakers had the intention of making it do that, right? On the other hand, did they believe that because they wanted to believe it? It was the 21st most successful film in the United States that year, with a total of $22 million. Every one of these things demonstrated that Bronson was a well-known actor on a worldwide scale. Bronson was a growing star in the action film business from the middle of the 1970s until the 1990s. He appeared in a multitude of films that were made by smaller companies, such as Cannon Films. The bulk of his films that were developed by Cannon Films were released in the years leading up to his retirement. In his later years, he had a downturn in his health, which played a role in his choice to resign. He ultimately retired in 1997 when he was 77 years old, and he passed away in 2003 when he was 81 years old. The surprising discoveries that have been made give a thorough and personal look at the route that Charles Bronson took to become a famous actor. They shed light on the challenges, tenacity, and commitment that characterized his path to success in the Hollywood industry. Quite a few individuals were unaware of this information on the famous actor Charles Bronson's acting career, his relationships with his co-stars, and the public's reaction to his work. The relationship that Charles Bronson had with his fellow actors was a complicated one. He was renowned for his tough guy demeanor on screen, but this occasionally extended to his interactions off-screen as well. He was recognized for his tough guy character. Every person he met had a distinctive interpretation of his personality, and they frequently characterized him in a manner that was distinct from others. While some felt Bronson was difficult to work with, others thought otherwise. Despite the differences, he managed to work with people without any major incidents. On the other hand, Bronson had a more positive relationship with some of his other co-stars. Zuleika shared that her father had a particularly close bond with his Magnificent Seven co-star Steve McQueen, the same person who advised him to change his name from Charles Bukinski. The two actors, who played iconic roles in the 1960 Western classics, developed a deep friendship that went beyond their on-screen familiarity. They would often spend hours talking and sharing stories, forming a strong connection that lasted long after the cameras stopped rolling. But that wasn't the case with every one of Bronson's co-stars. The fact that Bronson had feelings for his female co-stars, especially Jill Ireland, whom he would later marry, was also made public knowledge. What this means is that Bronson is capable of complex relationships, whether they be romantic, professional, or friendship-based. These intricacies cast doubt on the simplistic portrayal of Charles Bronson as a symbol of masculine strength. Many people thought Charles Bronson was cold and distant. Despite his many fans' expectations of a cordial encounter, he would often respond abruptly and rudely. Some people thought he was haughty or unapproachable because of how icy he seemed. Many people in the audience mistakenly believed he was just as rough and brutal as the roles he played. Some of his admirers mistakenly believed he would be hostile or combative when they saw him in person, yet nothing could be farther from the truth. They had no idea that his shy demeanor stemmed from his introverted character and battles with social anxiety. Being the center of attention made him feel quite uneasy and even overwhelmed at times. Strangely, an actor might suffer from social anxiety, yet Charles Bronson was a kind human being. Charles Bronson's public persona and private reality were both brought to light by this unexpected revelation, which gave him a human face. It makes people question their assumptions about Charles Bronson and encourages fans to reconsider their views on this Hollywood icon. What about his romantic life? To whom did he owe his good fortune as a woman? Let's dig into the details. Marriage and family. In addition, Zuleika Bronson, Charles Bronson's daughter, disclosed some information that was unexpected regarding her father's marriage and family. Zuleika, who was born to Charles, and his second wife, Jill Ireland, referred to her father as a man. Through her revelation, she disclosed that Charles's initial marriage to Harriet Tendler lasted for a few years before their divorce, in the year 1965. It was in 1947 that Charles and Harriet first met at the Philadelphia Acting School. The couple tied the knot 2 years later, with the assistance of Harriet's father, who was a prosperous Jewish dairy farmer. This occurred even though Charles was not in a financially stable position at the time. The couple did, however, end their marriage a few years later, after they had 2 children together. The divorce was said to have been caused by Charles's extramarital affair. However, was this the correct explanation? In the years that followed that divorce, Bronson wedded an English actress named Jill Ireland in 1968. The couple's marriage was a long and happy one, and it lasted until Jill Ireland passed away from breast cancer in the year 1990. His first encounter with her took place in 1962 when she was still married to David McCallum, the same McCallum with whom Charles had starred in the film The Great Escape. In the course of that period, Charles had joked to McCallum, "I'm going to marry your wife." A surprising number of years later, he did. The family had 7 children, Tony Bronson and Suzanne Bronson, both of whom were born to his first wife, Harriet Tendler, Zuleika and Katrina Holden Bronson, his children with Jill Ireland, the latter of whom was adopted, and Jason McCallum, Val McCallum, and Paul McCallum, who happened to be Jill Ireland's sons from her previous marriage. Before Harriet's passing, the family lived in a Bel Air mansion with their 7 children. It was important to Charles Bronson that he was actively involved in his children's lives and that he maintained a tight and loving relationship with his children. The link between them was preserved, and they frequently went together to watch their parents work on set during the production of the film. Jill Ireland frequently portrayed the role of his leading woman, and the 2 of them jointly appeared in several films. Their family went on vacations frequently and participated in a variety of enjoyable activities to spice up their connection and unity. Jill Ireland, who had been battling breast cancer for a long time, passed away at the age of 54. Bronson was played by Lance Henriksen, who was also an actor, in the television film Reason for Living, which was released in 1991. To honor her memory, the Jill Ireland story was dedicated. After some time had passed, Bronson tied the knot for the 3rd time with Kim Weeks, an actress who had previously worked with Dove Audio. Weeks was instrumental in the recording of Ireland's audiobook by assisting in the recording process. The death of Charles Bronson occurred on the 30th of August 2003, at the age of 81, following a marriage that lasted for a few years. She recalled pleasant childhood memories with her father, including family vacations and peaceful moments with her father. Zuleika underlined that her father was kind, and loving, and that he always placed his family first, because he always put his family first. It wasn't just that, though. She divulged further information about his emotional issues, including secrets about his worries, concerns, and flaws within him. Some realities about Charles Bronson are gradually being disclosed, and they are throwing light on things that he did that many people were unable to comprehend. This is happening years after his death. Not only has Zuleika disclosed surprising realities about her father's secrets, anxieties, and flaws, but she has also provided a detailed and personal portrayal of the great actor. Despite his tough guy image on the screen, Bronson's phobia for certain things showed a more vulnerable side to his personality. And it's a testament to his strength as a person that he managed his fear and continued to work in the industry. Charles Bronson had a peculiar habit of never shaking hands on set, which was a well-known quirk among his colleagues and friends. According to his daughter Zuleika Bronson and various biographers, Bronson's aversion to handshaking stemmed from a combination of factors. He reportedly always avoided handshakes and believed that shaking hands was a surefire way to contact germs and other illnesses. He wanted to avoid getting sick, especially during filming, as it could delay production and negatively impact his work. Soon, Bronson's no handshaking policy became a familiar aspect of his persona, and those who worked with him learned to respect his quirk. This habit, though seemingly trivial, speaks to a broader theme of Bronson's need for control and comfort in his personal life. Aside from this, he also had pyrophobia, which was an intense fear of fire. His fear was so significant that he insisted on staying in the second-floor suites during the filming of Death Wish in 1994. To avoid getting stranded up there in the event of a fire, he never agreed to film above the second story even once. He had no desire to ever find himself in a circumstance in which his family would be devoured by a fire breakout. When it came to his shortcomings, Bronson's love for women frequently caused him to fail to live up to his potential. It appeared as though he would engage in a love relationship with anyone who held the title of an actress or with whom he was working on set. it is hardly surprising that all three of his marriages were actors. Despite this, his cheating conduct was never desirable and had a variety of negative consequences for him, including the dissolution of his marriage to Harriet Tendler, his first wife. It came as a surprise to many people that Bronson's insecurities, worries, and anxieties frequently manifested themselves off-screen, even though he portrayed a strong and sophisticated figure on screen. Nevertheless, people never really realized that his concerns and anxieties arose from the traumatic experiences he had as a youngster, his death, and the legacy he left behind. Recent revelations made by Charles Bronson's daughter, Zuleika Bronson, shed additional light on her father's dying hours, in contrast to the earlier story that Charles Bronson passed away peacefully. The information that he had gone away on August 30th, 2003, at the age of 81, was disclosed by her. Her revelation revealed that the final days of his life were marred by excruciating agony and suffering as a result of complications resulting from Alzheimer's disease and pneumonia. Even though her father's health had been deteriorating for several years before his passing, Zuleika revealed that he continued to act as if it were a joke. She disclosed that over time he had grown more fragile and dependent on other people, which was a striking contrast to the strong and self-reliant figure he had earlier characterized himself as. Because of this, his acting career was severely impacted because he was unable to take on laborious parts as he had in the past, which was a major factor in his decision to quit. As he battled to breathe and speak in his dying moments, surrounded by his loved ones, his passing was a challenging and emotional event for his family. His death was a tough and painful experience. Los Angeles' Cedars-Sinai Medical Center was the location of his passing. His funeral was a private service in which only his immediate family and close friends were present. He was put to rest at the Brownsville Cemetery in West Windsor, Vermont, beside his second wife, Jill Ireland. The cemetery is located in Vermont. The legacy that Charles Bronson left behind is intricate and multidimensional, and it continues to inspire and amaze viewers even now. This reveals a dedicated artist and a family guy who is devoted to his relationship with his family. It goes well beyond his legendary cinema roles. It was also noted because he had a passion for painting and art. By continuing to honor his life and work via a variety of tributes and dedications, his devoted followers have ensured that his enduring legacy will continue to survive for generations to come. There is little question that it has served as a source of motivation for a new generation of performers and filmmakers. In addition, Zuleika disclosed that the memory of her father has served as a source of motivation for a new generation of performers and directors, one of whom is Quentin Tarantino, who has frequently named Bronson as a significant inspiration. It has been stated by this individual that the experience of seeing Bronson's transformation from a movie villain to a starring man left a tremendous influence on him. Bronson's one-of-a-kind on-screen presence, his no-nonsense attitude, and his cool style of delivering lines were all things that Tarantino appreciated about him. On the other hand, this respect is readily apparent in Tarantino's own work, in which he frequently portrays powerful and quiet figures that are reminiscent of Bronson's parts. In light of the alarming revelations that have been made regarding the Hollywood film superstar Charles Bronson, questions are starting to come flooding in. What was our level of familiarity with the individual who was the source of the myth? Zuleika Bronson, his daughter, has at long last withdrawn the curtain that has been covering her life, which was characterized by a diverse existence that was concealed by unexpected friendships, secret skills, and a profound sense of vulnerability. However, the question that continues to pique our interest is, what more mysteries are concealed behind the piercing eyes and the tough guy smile? Even though Charles Bronson has passed away, there is one thing that will continue to exist: his legacy. I would appreciate it if you would share your opinions in the comments section below if you found this video to be instructive. Please click the subscribe button and have a look at the other videos that are now shown on your screen.